The police sirens wailed loudly as Sandra Williams sat in the back of the police van, her hands tied with rope. Her expensive designer dress was torn and dirty. Blood dripped from a cut on her forehead. The other prisoners stared at her in shock. "You're the daughter of Robert Williams," one woman whispered. "The billionaire's daughter. What are you doing here with us?" Sandra's eyes filled with tears. Just 3 weeks ago, she was living in a mansion with golden gates. She had 20 cars, 50 servants, and enough money to buy anything in the world. Now she was going to prison, accused of stealing food from a poor family. But the worst part was not the prison. The worst part was the look in Michael's eyes when the police took her away. The man she had fallen deeply in love with. The man who thought she was just a poor beggar girl named Joy. "You lied to me," he had shouted as the police dragged her to the van. "You're not poor. You're rich. You played with my heart like a toy. I hate you. I never want to see you again." The police van hit a big hole in the road. Sandra's head hit the metal wall hard. She closed her eyes and remembered how it all started. How did the richest girl in New York end up here? How did her search for true love turn into a nightmare? Sandra Williams woke up in her king-size bed covered with golden sheets. The bed was so big that 10 people could sleep on it. She stretched her arms and yawned. Through her window, she could see the swimming pool, the tennis court, and the beautiful garden with flowers from all over the world. "Good morning, Princess Sandra," said Joan, her personal maid, as she entered the room carrying a tray of breakfast. "Your father wants to see you downstairs." Sandra sighed. She was 25 years old, but her father still treated her like a child. She put on her silk robe and walked down the marble stairs. The house was so big that it took her 5 minutes to reach the living room. Robert Williams sat in his leather chair, reading newspapers. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and a big belly. He owned oil companies, banks, and shopping malls across America. People called him the richest man on the East Coast. "Sandra, my daughter," he said without looking up from his newspaper. "I have good news for you." Sandra sat down on the soft sofa. "What is it, Dad?" "I found you a husband," he said with a big smile. "His name is Jonathan Parker. His father owns diamond mines in Colorado. They have more money than we do. The wedding will be in 2 months." Sandra's mouth fell open. "Dad, what? I don't know this man. I've never seen him before." Robert Williams finally looked at her. "You don't need to know him. Love will come later. What matters is that he is rich. Very rich. When you marry him, our 2 families will become the strongest in America." "But Dad, I want to marry for love, not money." Her father laughed loudly. "Love? My daughter, love is for poor people. Rich people marry for business. Look at me and your mother. We didn't love each other when we got married, but we learned to love each other." Sandra stood up, her heart beating fast. "Where is Mom? I want to talk to her." Robert Williams's face became sad. "You know your mother is in the hospital. The doctors say she might not wake up. That's why I need to make sure you're safe before anything happens to me." Sandra felt tears in her eyes. Her mother had been in a coma for 6 months after a car accident. The doctors said she might never wake up. Sandra visited her every day, but her mother just lay there, breathing with the help of machines. "I'm not marrying a stranger, Dad," Sandra said firmly. "I want to find true love first. Robert Williams stood up, his voice becoming angry. You are my only child. Everything I have will be yours one day. But you must marry the right person. Someone who can protect our wealth. I don't care about wealth, Sandra shouted. I want someone who will love me for who I am, not for my money. Her father shook his head. You're talking like a fool. Every man who comes to you only wants your money. True love doesn't exist for people like us. Sandra ran upstairs to her room and locked the door. She threw herself on her bed and cried. Her father was right about one thing. Every man who had tried to date her only wanted her money. They would buy her expensive gifts and take her to fancy restaurants, but she could see the greed in their eyes. Last year, a man named Tyler had proposed to her. She thought he loved her, but her private investigator found out that Tyler was already married with 3 children. He just wanted to marry her for her money and leave his poor family. Another man, called David, had tried to drug her drink at a party so he could sleep with her and then blackmail her father for money. Thank God her bodyguard saw him and stopped him. Sandra wiped her tears and looked at herself in the mirror. She was beautiful, with long black hair, smooth skin, and bright eyes. But her beauty felt like a curse. Men only saw her as a way to get rich. That night, Sandra couldn't sleep. She walked to her balcony and looked at the stars. In the distance, she could see the poor areas of Brooklyn. Small houses with rusty roofs, unpaved roads, and people struggling to survive. What if I was poor, she whispered to herself. What if I had nothing? Would anyone love me then? An idea started forming in her mind. A crazy, dangerous idea. The next morning, Sandra called her best friend, Susan, who was also from a rich family. Susan, I need your help, Sandra said as they sat by the pool. What's wrong? Susan asked, eating grapes from a golden bowl. I want to pretend to be poor. Susan choked on her grape. What? Are you sick? Sandra explained her plan. She wanted to dress like a poor person and go to the slums. She wanted to see if anyone could love her when she had nothing. Sandra, that's the most stupid idea I've ever heard, Susan said. Those places are dangerous. People get robbed, kidnapped, even killed. Your father will never allow it. That's why I won't tell him, Sandra replied. I'll tell him I'm going to Paris for shopping. You'll cover for me. Susan shook her head. This is crazy. What if something happens to you? Nothing will happen. I'll be careful. I just need to know if true love really exists. After many hours of begging, Susan finally agreed to help. But she made Sandra promise to be very careful and to call her every day. 3 days later, Sandra told her father she was traveling to Paris to buy clothes for her wedding. Robert Williams was happy because he thought she had accepted the marriage. Instead of going to the airport, Sandra went to a poor area in the Bronx. She had bought old, torn clothes from a thrift store. She rubbed dirt on her face and hands. She made her hair look messy and removed all her jewelry. When she looked in the mirror, she couldn't recognize herself. She looked like a poor girl who hadn't eaten in days. Sandra found a small room in a rundown apartment building. She paid the landlord, Mr. Rodriguez, 3 months' rent in advance. The room was tiny, with no heating, unreliable plumbing, and holes in the walls. But it was perfect for her plan. My name is Joy, she told Mr. Rodriguez. I just moved to New York from upstate. I'm looking for work. Mr. Rodriguez felt sorry for her. Life is hard in New York, Major. But you look like a good girl. Be careful of bad people. For the first time in her life, Sandra experienced what it meant to be poor. She had to use the communal bathroom down the hall. She cooked on a hot plate. She washed her clothes in the sink. At night, she could hear sirens and shouting from the streets. But she was determined to continue. She needed to find true love. After a week of living in the building, Sandra started going to the streets to beg for money. She sat by the subway entrance with a small cup, asking people for help. Most people ignored her. Some gave her small coins. A few insulted her. "Young girl, like you should be working, not begging," one woman said. Sandra lowered her head and said nothing. This was harder than she had imagined. It was on a Thursday morning, exactly 2 weeks after she started her new life, that everything changed. Sandra was sitting by the subway entrance, feeling hungry and tired, when she heard a gentle voice. "Miss, are you okay?" She looked up and saw a young man standing in front of her. He was tall and handsome, with kind eyes and a warm smile. He wore simple clothes, a clean shirt and trousers, but they were not expensive. In his hand, he carried a small bag. "I'm fine," Sandra said softly, not looking at his face. The man knelt down beside her. "You don't look fine. When did you last eat?" Sandra's stomach made a loud sound. She hadn't eaten since the day before. "Yesterday," she whispered. Without saying another word, the man opened his bag and brought out a sandwich and a bottle of water. "Here, take this. I bought it for my lunch, but you need it more than I do." Sandra looked at him in surprise. "But what will you eat?" He smiled. "Don't worry about me. I can buy another one. My name is Michael." "What's your name?" "Joy," Sandra replied, taking the food with shaking hands. "Nice to meet you, Joy. Where do you sleep at night?" Sandra pointed to the apartment building behind them. "I rent a small room there." Michael nodded. "That's good. At least you have a roof over your head. Many people don't even have that." As Sandra ate the food, Michael sat with her and told her about himself. He was 28 years old. He worked as a teacher in a public school. He didn't earn much money, but he loved helping children learn. "Education is the key to everything," he said. "When children learn, they can change their lives and help their families." Sandra listened to him talk, and she felt something strange in her heart. Something she had never felt before. Michael wasn't looking at her with greed or lust. He was looking at her with genuine care and kindness. After she finished eating, Michael stood up. "I have to go to work now, but I'll come back tomorrow to check on you. Is that okay?" Sandra nodded, unable to speak. As she watched him walk away, she realized that her heart was beating fast. Not from fear, but from something else. Something that felt like. But then she remembered who she really was. She was Sandra Williams, the billionaire's daughter. He was Michael, a poor teacher. Their worlds were completely different. What she didn't know was that her simple lie was about to create the biggest problem of her life. A problem that would end with her in the back of a police van, losing the one man who had ever truly loved her. The next morning, Michael came back just as he had promised. This time, he brought coffee and a bagel. As they sat together, Sandra felt herself falling deeper in love with his gentle nature and caring heart. But across the street, hidden behind a parked car, someone was watching them. Someone who knew exactly who Sandra really was. Someone who was about to destroy everything. The person watching Sandra and Michael from behind the car was Jonathan Parker, the man Robert Williams wanted Sandra to marry. He had been looking for her everywhere since she disappeared 3 weeks ago. Jonathan was not a nice man. He was greedy, wicked, and cruel. He only wanted to marry Sandra for her father's money. When Robert Williams told him that Sandra had run away, Jonathan hired private investigators to find her. So, the rich princess wants to play poor, Jonathan said to himself, taking pictures with his phone. This is perfect. I can use this to destroy her and still get her father's money. Jonathan watched as Sandra and Michael talked and laughed together. He could see that Sandra was in love. This made him very angry. How dare she fall in love with a poor teacher when she was supposed to marry him? He made a wicked plan. He would wait for the perfect moment to destroy Sandra's happiness and force her to marry him. For the next 5 days, Michael came to see Sandra every morning and evening. He would bring her food, and they would sit together talking about life, dreams, and hopes. Sandra had never been so happy. Michael treated her with respect and kindness. He didn't try to touch her inappropriately or ask her for anything. He just wanted to make sure she was safe and fed. Joy, Michael said one evening as they sat watching the sunset from a nearby park, I have something to tell you. Sandra's heart started beating fast. What is it? I think I'm falling in love with you, he said shyly. I know we've only known each other for a week, but I've never felt this way about anyone before. Sandra felt tears in her eyes. I love you too, Michael. More than you can imagine. They held hands and looked into each other's eyes. For the first time in her life, Sandra felt truly loved for who she was, not for her money. I want to marry you, Michael continued. I don't have much money, but I promise to work hard and take care of you. Will you be my wife? Sandra wanted to say yes, but the guilt in her heart was too strong. She was living a lie. How could she marry him when he didn't know who she really was? Michael, she said carefully, what if I'm not who you think I am? He looked confused. What do you mean? What if I had a secret? Something big that I haven't told you. Michael held her hand tighter. Joy, I don't care about your past. I only care about your heart. Whatever secret you have, we can face it together. Sandra almost told him the truth that night. But she was scared. What if he rejected her when he found out she was rich? What if he thought she was just playing with him? The next morning, Jonathan put his evil plan into action. He went to Sandra's apartment building and spoke to Mr. Rodriguez, the landlord. Excuse me, sir, Jonathan said politely. I'm looking for my sister. Her name is Joy. She's been missing from our family for weeks. Mr. Rodriguez nodded. Yes, she lives here. Nice girl, very quiet. Are you really her brother? Yes, Jonathan lied. Our parents are very worried about her. She ran away because she was angry about an arranged marriage. But we've changed our minds. She can marry whoever she wants. Mr. Rodriguez smiled. That's good. She seems to have a boyfriend now. A teacher called Michael. They're always together. Jonathan pretended to be happy. Really? That's wonderful. Our parents will be so pleased. Can you do me a favor? Can you tell her to meet me at the corner store tomorrow morning? I want to surprise her with good news from home. Mr. Rodriguez agreed to deliver the message. That evening, when Sandra came back to her room, Mr. Rodriguez told her about her brother. Sandra was confused. She didn't have a brother. But she was also curious. Who was looking for her? The next morning, Sandra went to the corner store as requested. She looked around for anyone who might be her supposed brother. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Hello, Sandra Williams." She turned around and froze. Standing there was Jonathan Parker, dressed in expensive clothes with a wicked smile on his face. "You?" Sandra gasped. "How did you find me?" "It wasn't hard," Jonathan said. "Your father is worried sick about you. He thinks you're in Paris shopping. Imagine his surprise when I tell him his precious daughter has been living in the slums, pretending to be a beggar." Sandra's face went pale. "What do you want?" "Simple," Jonathan said. "You're going to marry me as planned. If you don't, I'll tell everyone about your little game. I'll tell your teacher boyfriend who you really are. I'll tell your father where you've been. And I'll make sure everyone knows that the great Sandra Williams is a liar." Sandra shook her head. "I'll never marry you. I love Michael." Jonathan laughed evilly. "Love? You think that poor teacher will still love you when he finds out you're a billionaire's daughter who's been lying to him? You think he'll believe you really love him, or will he think you were just playing with him for fun?" Sandra felt tears forming in her eyes. Jonathan was right. How could Michael trust her after such a big lie? "You have 24 hours to decide," Jonathan said. "Meet me here tomorrow morning with your answer. If you say no, I destroy your life and your teacher's life too." That night, Sandra couldn't sleep. She sat in her small room crying and thinking. She loved Michael more than anything, but she had built their relationship on lies. How could she ask him to forgive her? She decided to tell Michael the truth herself before Jonathan could destroy everything. At least if the truth came from her, Michael might understand that her love was real. The next morning, Sandra went to Michael's school. She waited outside his classroom until he finished teaching. "Joy," Michael said happily when he saw her. "What are you doing here?" "Michael, I need to tell you something important," Sandra said, her voice shaking. They sat under a tree in the school courtyard. Sandra took a deep breath and began to tell him everything. About her real name, her father's wealth, her arranged marriage, and why she had pretended to be poor. Michael listened quietly, his face changing from confusion to shock to hurt. "So your real name is Sandra Williams," he said slowly. "You're the daughter of Robert Williams, the billionaire." "Yes," Sandra whispered. "But my love for you is real. I've never felt this way about anyone before." Michael stood up and walked away from her. Sandra followed him. "Michael, please understand. I was looking for true love. I wanted someone to love me for who I am, not for my money." Michael turned around, his eyes full of pain. "But you lied to me, Sandra. For weeks, you made me believe you were poor and struggling. I shared my food with you. I worried about you sleeping in that terrible room. I felt sorry for you. I know, and I'm sorry. But you made me look like a fool," Michael interrupted. "You're probably laughing at me inside. The poor teacher who fell in love with a billionaire's daughter." "No," Sandra cried. "I would never laugh at you. I love you, Michael. I love your kindness, your gentleness, your caring heart. I love everything about you." But Michael was too hurt to listen. "How can I believe anything you say now? You've been lying since the first day we met." As they were arguing, Jonathan appeared with 2 policemen. "There she is, officers," Jonathan said. "The thief who stole food from my family." Sandra looked at him in shock. "What? I never stole anything from you." "You stole my heart," Jonathan said with a fake smile. "And you stole food from poor families by pretending to be a beggar when you're actually rich." The policeman looked confused, but Jonathan had bribed them well. This woman has been pretending to be poor and taking food meant for real beggars, Jonathan lied. She's the daughter of Robert Williams. She's been playing games with poor people's lives. One policeman shook his head. Rich people and their games. You're under arrest for fraud and theft. Wait. Michael said. She never stole anything. I gave her food freely. But it was too late. The policeman grabbed Sandra and put handcuffs on her. Michael, please believe me, Sandra cried as they dragged her away. I love you. This is all a lie. But Michael just stood there, watching the woman he loved being taken away. He was too confused and hurt to know what to believe. 3 hours later, Robert Williams arrived at the police station with his lawyers. He was furious when he saw his daughter in a cell. How dare you arrest my daughter without evidence, he shouted at the police chief. Within minutes, Sandra was released. Robert Williams had brought proof that Sandra had never stolen anything. The charges were fake. But Jonathan's plan had worked partially. Sandra's secret was now out, and Michael had seen her being arrested. Sandra, Robert Williams said as they drove home, this foolishness ends now. You're marrying Jonathan next week. Never, Sandra said firmly. I don't love him. I love Michael. That poor teacher, her father laughed. He won't want you now. You've embarrassed yourself and our family. But Sandra was determined. She had found true love, and she wasn't going to give it up. The next day, Sandra went back to Michael's school. This time, she came in her real clothes, an expensive dress, jewelry, and a car with a driver. All the children and teachers stared at her as she walked to Michael's classroom. Michael, she said when she found him. I know you're angry, but please listen to me. Michael looked at her expensive clothes and shook his head. Look at you. This is who you really are. We are from different worlds, Sandra. No, Sandra said firmly. This is just what I wear. Who I really am is the woman who fell in love with your kindness. The woman who learned what it means to struggle and survive. The woman who found her heart when she met you. She knelt down in front of him, not caring that everyone was watching. Michael, I lied about my name and my background, but I never lied about my feelings. I love you. I want to marry you. I don't care if you're poor or rich. I just want to be with you. Michael looked into her eyes and saw the same gentleness and love he had fallen in love with. But your father, your family, they'll never accept me, he said. Sandra smiled. Let me worry about that. Do you still love me? Michael nodded slowly. I never stopped loving you. I was just hurt and confused. They hugged each other tightly while everyone around them clapped and cheered. When Robert Williams heard that Sandra was still planning to marry Michael, he was furious. But Sandra had made up her mind. Dad, she said, I've learned something important. True love exists. Michael loved me when he thought I had nothing. That's the kind of man I want to marry. But he's poor, her father argued. So what? We can help him if he needs it. But more importantly, he has something money can't buy, a good heart. Robert Williams saw the determination in his daughter's eyes. He realized that she had grown up and become a strong woman. Fine, he said finally. But I want to meet this young man first. When Michael met Robert Williams, he was nervous but respectful. He explained that he truly loved Sandra and would work hard to make her happy. Robert Williams was impressed by Michael's honesty and integrity. He gave them his blessing. As for Jonathan, when Robert Williams found out about his evil plan and fake charges, he made sure Jonathan was arrested for lying to the police and attempted fraud. 6 months later, Sandra and Michael had their wedding. It was the most beautiful wedding New York had ever seen. Sandra wore a stunning white dress, and Michael looked handsome in his suit. But the most beautiful thing was the love in their eyes as they looked at each other. During the ceremony, Sandra spoke to the crowd. I learned that true love isn't about how much money someone has. It's about the size of their heart. Michael loved me when he thought I was a poor beggar. That's when I knew he was the right man for me. Michael added, Sandra taught me that love can come from the most unexpected places. She also showed me that it's not where you come from that matters, but who you choose to become. After the wedding, Sandra and Michael moved into a beautiful house in Manhattan. Sandra used her wealth to help Michael build better schools for poor children. Together, they helped many families in need. Sandra never forgot the lessons she learned during her weeks as a beggar. She learned that kindness, humility, and genuine love are more valuable than all the money in the world. And they lived happily ever after, proving that true love really does exist. You just have to be brave enough to find it. Dear viewers, what did you learn from Sandra and Michael's incredible love story? Sometimes we have to lose ourselves to find our true selves. Sometimes we have to risk everything to gain what matters most. Love is not about wealth or status, it's about finding someone who sees your heart and loves you for who you truly are. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories about love, family, and life lessons. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Thank you for watching, and remember, true love is worth fighting for.